Hey everyone, it's me again, and it is time for my second and final Halloween video of the year. Now, I kinda lied the last time I talked to you guys because I said that the theme around my Halloween looks this year would be last-minute Halloween looks, and as you can see, that has kind of changed. This is not a last-minute Halloween makeup by any stretch of the imagination. I ended up getting a request from a very dear and loyal viewer of mine, Heather, and she requested that I do a sugar skull or calavera makeup tutorial. Now my first thought was, oh dear God, no, because I was so scared of doing a sugar skull makeup because these kinds of inspired looks tend to pull a lot of rage from people who, you know, talk about cultural appropriation and how you're, you know, stealing something from another culture and trying to make it better, and it's racist and it's insensitive and blah blah blah, and I didn't want to mess with any of that. At the same time, I stopped and I thought, why am I letting these people scare me? Because I can do some research about cultural appropriation and actually talk about it in a very low pressure environment that's not going to make anyone feel like an enemy. A warning to everyone who is trying to attempt this look or something very similar to it, because as I'll talk about in the video, every sugar skull is going to be completely different. But if you're gonna do this, give yourself lots and lots of time. This is not an easy look. This is not the kind of thing you can just throw on and run out the door. You have to do research, there's prep involved, and you know, so just keep that in mind. If you're gonna do something like this, you're gonna have to do research, you're gonna have to prepare ahead of time, but this is the look I decided to do. I didn't really go into it with a particular plan. I just knew the people who I wanted to pay homage to because sugar skulls or calaveras are a part of Day of the Dead, which is a Mexican celebration honoring their family members who have passed on. And so I thought of immediately two people in my life who have passed on from this mortal plane. One of them was my dad, who died of cancer when I was a year and a half old, and one of them was my grandmother on my father's side. But I decided to use symbolism from, you know, the kind of symbolism that is used in Day of the Dead imagery to pay tribute to those two integral people in my life with this sugar skull makeup look. And while I'm at it, I'm also going to talk about cultural appropriation, what it is, how to avoid it, and some examples of what not to do. So, if you want to learn about cultural appropriation and just what that is anyway, and how to create some techniques surrounding Day of the Dead calaveras or sugar skulls, then please keep on watching. What's happening, guys? Alright, let's get started because it's probably going to be a pretty long tutorial. First step is going to be taking the Urban Decay Electric palette and taking Freak, which is this grassy green right here. It's one of the only colors in the palette that does have a hint of shimmer. And I'm going to take this on an Elf Shadow C brush and I'm going to pack it on the inner third of the lid. And you're going to kind of carry this over almost to the middle point and really put it in on the inner corner and carry it upward. We're going to be putting another green on here as well, so don't worry if it's a little bit patchy, which this color can get that way sometimes. On the inner corner here and on the lower lash line, really just don't even worry about carrying this too high or too low. Go ham sandwich. Because when you look at calaveras, they have, you know, they're skulls. They're meant to resemble skulls, so their eyes are either blacked out or they're made in all these beautiful different kind of color combinations. And I have opted in this case for green and blue because I'm honoring two members of my immediate family who have passed away in my lifetime, my father and my grandmother. My grandmother loved the ocean and lighthouses. She collected little lighthouse figurines, so I chose blue to represent her and her love of the ocean, and my father's favorite color was green, so I chose green to kind of pay homage to him and his love for the color green I'm gonna go into my Kat Von D Mi Vida Loca Remix palette, and I'm gonna take Misfit, which is this green right there. It's a very similar green to Freak, but it's matte, and it's just a little bit more on the grassy side. It's a little bit deeper, so I'm gonna take this and just kind of carry it from where we stopped with Freak and move it most of the way over the lid, up into the crease. Just all this inside portion is gonna be various shades of green. All right, so let's talk cultural appropriation. First of all, what is cultural appropriation? That was my first big question when this issue started coming to light in the last few years. I was like, well, what is that even? Like, what is this about? So I couldn't figure out, I'm just putting this on the lower lash line below Freak to blend it out a little bit and carrying it over a smidge. So I did a ton of research for this video to figure out once and for all what cultural appropriation was. And to be honest, when I looked up, like when I just flat out tried to Google the definition, I couldn't find anything at all. And so I went ahead and took a bunch of notes and looked up the definition of appropriation, just the word appropriation. I looked it up, and there's a few definitions that I wanted to share with you guys. First definition is to take or use something in a way that is illegal, unfair, etc. Fair enough. Okay, I could kind of buy that. I kept reading. To make use of without authority or right. Again, cool. Okay. And then number 3 was to take exclusive possession of, which I think is important when we're talking about, in particular, cultural appropriation. So now I'm gonna go ahead and take Synth from the Mi Vida Loca Remix palette, this beautiful teal blue, and I'm gonna pack that on my little brush here, tap it off, and I'm gonna put this on the outside edge of my eye, rounding around that way, if that makes sense. I think the definition of appropriation that they give that says to take exclusive possession of, I think that's important in terms of cultural appropriation because I think it's dead on with what they're talking about. But I also think there's a lot more to it than simply the definition of the word appropriation, because I mean, we could just be mincing our words here. So I asked my friends, many of whom are of the social justice warrior ilk, many of whom have been sharing kind of graphics and things about cultural appropriation in terms of Halloween, and I asked them, I was like, all right guys, help me out here. What exactly is cultural appropriation, and would this sugar skull look be culturally appropriating? And I actually got a lot of really thoughtful answers because my friends are great. I'm gonna take that same Synth shade on this same brush and I'm gonna go under the lower lash line here. But one of my friends, Dave, who is also my tattoo artist, fun fact, had a really thoughtful response to a question I had about doing this sugar skull makeup. And he said that the definition of cultural appropriation is, and I quote, when someone takes a cultural icon or event and uses it out of context or in a disrespectful way for profit or promotion. And I think that is dead on when it comes to defining cultural appropriation, because the key phrases there, the key things to keep in mind are out of context, disrespectful way for profit or promotion. When we think of the ultimate in cultural appropriation, at least in my mind, I think of Native American Halloween costumes and, you know, why you shouldn't really do that. And when we take that example, Native Americans, for example, and, you know, Indian Halloween costumes, when we think about those, most of those are grossly out of context. You know, you're wearing them on a day where people in the culture would not typically wear that item, or, you know, there are female costumes that have headdresses that are traditionally worn by Native American men. So, you know, it's completely out of context. It's completely kind of, you know, in a disrespectful way, because a lot of them are really overly sexualized and they're really short and skimpy, and so it's out of context, it's disrespectful, and it's for profit or promotion because, you know, this big Halloween company is selling these costumes for profit. So in my mind, that is like the ultimate example of appropriation. So first kind of tip to keep yourself from appropriating this Halloween is don't dress up like a Native American. Just don't. Just avoid it. There's so many other costumes in the world. We really, no, just don't even touch it. When it comes to sugar skulls or sugar skull inspired makeup, I think that there is a way to do a sugar skull inspired makeup like I'm doing here while still keeping respectful of the origin culture and while doing it in context. Because a lot of people say that sugar skulls are appropriative, if that's even a word, because, you're wearing it on Halloween when Day of the Dead is on November 1st. Well, if someone says that to you, they're wrong. Because, I'll explain, the Day of the Dead is actually a 3-day festival. It's multiple days. And it goes from October 31st to November 2nd. So to wear a sugar skull or sugar skull inspired look on Halloween is actually in context because Halloween Day is when Day of the Dead starts. And now I'm gonna deepen things up on this side a little bit. I'm gonna take Chaos from the Urban Decay Electric palette, this bright cobalt blue right there, and I'm just taking a tap of this because this is a strong shade, and I'm gonna put it right in my crease proper here, blending into the teal. When you do a sugar skull inspired look, you can definitely do this in context, but one of the key things I think if you want to be appreciative of a culture as opposed to appropriative is to research. Do your research about the culture, about the event of Day of the Dead, really educate yourself, take this as a learning opportunity. But there we go, now we've got our blend going. I'm just making sure that this is nice and rounded because we're trying to mimic a sugar skull shape, so we're trying to kind of mimic this round skull eyeball. Another thing you can do to avoid being culturally appropriative when it comes to Halloween is ask a member of the culture. Ask yourself if, would a member of the culture be offended by this? Or even better, ask a member of the culture yourself. Go, if you're gonna do a sugar skull makeup, go to a member of Mexican culture that who celebrates Day of the Dead and say, hey, I was thinking about doing this, what are your thoughts? And, sort of take those thoughts into account as you're, putting together your look, because that can be a really helpful way to learn more about the culture and to find out how to do things in a very respectful way. I'm not doing a flat out skull makeup. I'm not really doing a sugar skull in the most traditional sense. I'm taking the aesthetic of the sugar skull and applying it through the same cultural vein of honoring, relatives who have passed away, and just, adding my own elements to it to make it really feel like something very personal to me while still connecting with another culture. So now I'm gonna do the lips really quickly just to kind of bring this together a little bit. I'm gonna take my NYX Jumbo Eye Pencil in Milk and a detailer brush if I can find one. I'll use this bent liner brush from e.l.f. And I'm gonna take this and coat my brush in the Jumbo Eye Pencil. And then I'm going to start at the corner of my mouth and draw a line out like that. This does not have to be perfect. We're going to be going over it with some color later. And then I'm going to create a little triangle at the outside of my lip, right here, kind of going along my natural lip line and connecting it over. There we go. And that's sort of the beginning of your mouth. And now I'm going to draw the little teeth into the skull. Take my dirty liner brush and I'm gonna start with Synth, that teal color that we added into our look. I'm gonna take that on this brush and I'm gonna pat that over my, the base of my lip here. We don't want to appropriate, we want to appreciate. And the definition I found for appreciation that I absolutely love is to grasp the worth, nature, quality, or significance of, or to be fully aware of. So I think the main key when it comes to, you know, not appropriating is to really do your research and grasp the significance of the culture that you're pulling inspiration from. I'm just taking Misfit, the deeper green, and I'm gonna start where the blue ends and fade it into the green. So for the end of the mouth, obviously, the natural next step, I'm gonna take Freak from the electric palette and I'm gonna take it right at the tip of the mouth and fade it into that darker green. You know, this makeup, kind of planning it and researching for it and doing all of this work for this makeup was really a profound learning experience for me. It allowed me to kind of really do research into my own family and learn more about the relatives that I was paying homage to. Because, you know, we, as time goes on, we forget the people around us, you know, out of sight, out of mind. So as soon as those people leave this mortal plane and go wherever you believe that they go, we can forget how much they meant to us and forget what they were like and, you know, what they enjoyed and what they were passionate about. So this allowed me to kind of remember, you know, my father and remember my grandmother and ask my other relatives questions about them, which led to connecting with my other relatives. For the rest of the lips, I'm gonna do some Jeffree Star Velour Liquid Lipstick in the shade Blue Velvet. I'm gonna take a synthetic brush. This is a detailer brush by Real Techniques, and I'm just gonna take this on the outside of my lips. And then for the middle, I could do a kind of ombre back into light blue, but I think, hear me out on this, work with me here. I'm gonna take my jumbo eye pencil in Milk, take that same brush with the blue on it, doesn't even really matter, and pat this on the center. So this almost kind of turned into a blue ombre. Not a bad thing, not mad at it, but I do want a little bit more white in the center, so I'm mopping off my jumbo pencil and just tapping that directly on the lip. And now I'm gonna try something different. I'm gonna take Freak from my electric palette and I'm going to pack it on the center of my mouth. This is either gonna look really cool or really kind of messed up, but we'll see how it goes. So I'm gonna take Freak on a packing style eyeshadow C brush, really load that product up on there, and we're just gonna pat it over the very whitest part in the middle. And I just want a little bit more definition around the outside of the lips. And just because I am not a skull, I am a human and I have human lips. So I'm gonna take my L'Oreal Silk Simi liner in cobalt blue. And I'm just gonna line the outside of just kind of the top of my lip and the bottom. Now we're going into kind of the detailing phase or the decoration phase. This kind of section of the look, anything goes. You can draw just about anything on your face. When I did research into sugar skull makeup, I noticed that there was a lot of, or not sugar skull makeup, but sugar skulls in general, which I highly encourage you guys to do. Look at pictures of calaveras, of sugar skulls, of the actual little figurines, and look at the designs that they're using. There's a lot of flower imagery in these. So I'm going to attempt, and this might be a complete disaster, but I'm going to attempt to draw a magnolia flower on my forehead up here, because my grandmother's favorite flower of all time was magnolias, and we had a big, we still do, we have a big magnolia tree in my yard of my house growing up, and I just loved those flowers. They're beautiful white, kind of creamy white flowers with tons and tons of little seeds inside the pods, and when they opened up, they were just absolutely beautiful. So it's kind of a homage to both my grandmother and my dad, because, you know, my dad helped remodel and completely build my childhood home, which my mother still lives in. So it's a great way to kind of pay homage to both of them. It's the great connector that will be up by where my third eye is, I guess. And so this is gonna be pretty tough. I'm probably gonna be pretty quiet through most of this process, just because I haven't practiced this. It's gonna be difficult. I'm a little bit nervous about it, but I'm gonna do my best. So first I'm gonna work on the inside of the flower, and the inside of the flower is pretty green. It's like a greenish, yellowish kind of color. So I'm gonna take the Jeffree Star Velour Liquid Lipstick in the shade Dirty Money, which isn't quite the green I'm looking for, but it will work. And I'm gonna take this on my little bent liner brush, and I'm going to draw a circle in the center of my forehead. So now I'm going to draw my leaves, and the leaves are kind of like, you know, they're basically your standard leaves. They start pretty wide at the bottom and come out thinner at the top. Now I'm going to take a brown eyeliner, any old brown eyeliner will do, and I'm going to draw in a line on each side, and then some lines diagonally sweeping downward. And now we're gonna work on the petals, which is the really hard part. I think I'm going to do a kind of, you know, I'm not gonna be able to fit a lot of petals on here, but I'm gonna do my very, very best to fit a good bit of them. So it looks like we've got some oval shapes here with little lines drawn into them, and then we've got these bigger petals kind of out around the outside. And now I'm going to color in my starting petals. I'm going to go ahead and take a pen style liner, and I'm going to draw a kind of pointed line starting like at the corner here, going down to a point and then going out. Now that those petals are all nice and outlined, we can go ahead and outline the edges of the petals behind them. Same black liner. And now I'm going to go back in with my NYX Jumbo pencil and fill in any gaps. We're gonna need our black liner again, and I'm just gonna draw out from the center some lines here. And again, you can use a more opaque black liner if you want to. And then I'm just going to draw little dots on the tips of those lines. So now that I've got the seeds drawn on, they are absolutely not perfect, but they don't really have to be too terrible perfect. You can just sort of fade them into the background because they're quite small on real magnolias. And I'm going to go ahead and fill in the center of our little dot here in yellow because I think it's gonna look a little bit more complete that way. Fran from my Mi Vida Loca Remix palette, just a touch of it. You could also use Sugar Pill's Dolly Pop for this. And you're just gonna pat that in the center of your flower. I'm going to go ahead and go throughout my cheeks and just start to kind of, you know, make some celestial swirls and things with my NYX Jumbo pencil, or a white eyeliner would also be really, really handy for this. I just don't have one. So I'm gonna take one of my liner brushes. If I can find my bent liner brush, I will use that. And I'm going to draw some swirly swirlies all around my cheeks. Some of the other imagery that I found a lot in these Dia de los Muertos skulls are spider webs. So I might draw a little white spider web here. Alright guys, here is the finished look. I changed a few things around. I didn't like the swirls on my cheeks. I thought they were looking a little bit clowny, but I went ahead and just sort of refined everything until I was happy with it. I did add a little bit of blue liner just to bring some definition to my eyes and bring the whole look together. So for costume, when it comes to this look, you know all those Day of the Dead kind of Calavera sugar skull costumes that you find at the Halloween store? Yeah, avoid them. Most of them are way too sexualized, and you know, that's not what you want. This is a holiday that is centered around, you know, religion and faith and death, and so I would probably just wear a long black skirt with a black peasant style top. You could also wear whites or bright colors because those are often frequent in Day of the Dead celebrations, yellows, reds, kind of fall colors, but keep it modest, you know, keep it put together. And if you're gonna wear a costume like this, don't go out to the bar and get drunk and, you know, make a total fool of yourself, because that's not what Day of the Dead is about, and that is kind of taking the costume, so to speak, it's taking the cultural element out of context. So you could probably wear this trick-or-treating. I don't see anything wrong with that necessarily, but just don't make a fool of yourself. Don't be an asshole. Don't be a dick. Classic rules to live by. Let's go ahead and do some awkward posing. Awkward posing. Looking down. Looking forward. Looking fierce. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned a lot, not just about how to create the techniques that are commonly used in Day of the Dead calaveras or sugar skull face paintings, but also about cultural appropriation and, you know, how to avoid it, what it is, what the big deal is about it, you know, and some things not to do so you can safely enjoy your Halloween while remaining respectful of the cultures around you. So I thank you guys so much for watching. Have a safe and happy Halloween, and if you enjoyed this video, there's a button for that. Spank that like button in the butt, you know it deserves it. And if you want to see more from me, subscribe and become a member of the faithful today. Happy Halloween, be safe, be awesome, be beautiful, and I will see you guys in the next video. Toodles!